All right, so college football fans have been screaming for a true playoff system for years, even the President of the United States. Well, now it looks like it's finally going to happen, but it won't look anything at all like March Madness. Just forget about 16 or 8 teams battling it out for the championship. Here's what you can expect: a 4-team playoff. Now, if the major conferences approve it, it'll actually replace the current BCS system that's despised by most fans, I guess you could say. The new system could go into effect, too, as early as the 2014 season. Joining us on the phone, ESPN college football analyst and former pro football quarterback, Jesse Palmer. So, Jesse, what's your take on this?
I think this is a great day for all college football fans. You know, I think it's important to remember when the BCS was made, its main mission was to pit the 1 and 2 teams against each other in a national championship game. And I think for 14 years, the BCS, for the most part, has done a great job of that. I think one thing the BCS has failed to do over the last 14 years is give us an undisputed national champion. You know, I can remember 2 years ago when Auburn won a national championship, but there was TCU undefeated, just coming off a Rose Bowl win. A lot of people wondered what would have happened if both those teams played one more game. Who would have been the national champion? Similar situation the year before that when Alabama won, Boise State was undefeated, and the year before that, Florida won, and there was an undefeated Utah team. So I think for the last 14 years, we've maybe been 97% sure at the end of the season who the national champion was. I think with this new format, which will take effect in 2014, I think it'll bring us that much closer to being 100% sure who the national champion is year in and year out.
What about current bowl games? How would that fit into this proposal?
Well, I think one of the big topics of discussion right now is trying to determine where and when to play these games. This is, after all, going to be a playoff. Should there be home field advantage given to the first round of these Final Four games to the teams that finish number 1 and number 2 at the end of the regular season, or do you somehow find a way to tie in the current BCS bowl games with these games? I think one of the reasons I like this format and this playoff format that everyone's calling right now the Final Four is I think you can still find a way to keep bowl traditions alive. Depending on how the Final Four teams play out in the rankings, you can still have a Big Ten team play a Pac-12 team in the Rose Bowl. You could still have an SEC champion playing in the Sugar Bowl or a Big 12 champion playing in the Fiesta Bowl, depending on how it all plays out. I think there's a lot of different reasons why this model makes sense, but certainly right now a big hurdle moving forward is figuring out when and where exactly to play these quote-unquote Final Four games.
All right, before I let you go, Jesse, let's get down to the real point here, and that is when when we all pick our teams and put our whole structure together and compete against everybody else with it, will this make it easier for us to win?
For us to win, I guess it depends on who us is. I think playing that extra game, you know, it can potentially make it a lot trickier. It's funny, you know, I've spoken to a lot of coaches over the last couple of weeks. There are a lot of coaches that oppose this because they don't want to have to play a 15th game at the end of the regular season because of injuries and how things stack up.
Makes sense.
A lot of coaches are a little bit weary of doing that, especially teams from the best power conferences, example in SEC. And Alabama doesn't want to have to play LSU, Arkansas, the Floridas of the world, the Georgias of the world, have to play an SEC championship game, have to play a top 4 opponent in the postseason, and then play another top 4 opponent just to win a national championship. But I think at the end of the day, this is the best model in terms of figuring out who truly is the national champion. And for all fans throughout college football, this is what we've been screaming for the last 14 years. And finally, in 2 years, I think it's finally going to come to fruition.
And Jesse's screaming now. Jesse Palmer, thanks for calling in. I sure appreciate it. All right, well, you've been called boring, stiff, told that you don't connect. What's the solution? If you're Mitt Romney, you consider a Saturday Night Live cameo. Good idea or a disaster in the making?